you like to get started?
Sure, let's do it.
All right. Hi, everyone. If you don't already know me, I'm Nick Swanson. I'm the current president of BizBio, a student group at Jefferson that focuses on career development for all professions at the interface of science, healthcare, and business. I want to thank you all for taking the time to attend our seminars, career panels, and workshops over the past year. I hope that you found them engaging and useful for your own career exploration. On behalf of BizBio, I would like to express that we are with you during these unprecedented times, and we will continue to provide as many resources as we can. If you ever have any suggestions, comments, or concerns, please don't hesitate to email us at bizbio@jefferson.edu. We greatly appreciate the positive feedback we've been receiving, and we'll do our best to prepare events that spotlight all your career interests. Each week, we curate an awesome newsletter that contains up-to-date event information, career resources, job postings, and recently COVID-19 updates from the biotech and biopharma spaces. If you haven't already subscribed to our newsletter, I'm going to put the link in the chat. Let me do that now. There you go. Okay. Yeah, so please subscribe with the link in the chat window. Also, feel free to connect with BizBio on LinkedIn via the second link that I just posted. We're always looking for potential seminar speakers or panelists for roundtable discussions. So if you would like to offer your expertise to our emerging life science professionals, please shoot us an email. Tomorrow, the Graduate Student Association and BizBio are promoting a science advocacy event with Adam Katz, who is the current Advocacy Engagement Manager for the Society for Neuroscience, or SFN. Subscribe to our newsletter to receive a Zoom link for tomorrow's 1 o'clock event as well. Today, we're very lucky to have our speaker, Lee Agostini. He's a fourth-year PhD candidate and all things BizBio enthusiast. Lee's research is oncology-focused, and he's an excellent scientific communicator. I would consider him a professional networker at this point and an invaluable resource for connections in the life sciences field. His seminar today, entitled Hacking LinkedIn for Emerging Life Science Professionals, will teach us how he builds relationships with an industry even while he's still training in academia. If you have questions, please use the chat window to submit them, and Lee will answer them to the best of his ability during the Q&A session at the end of his presentation. Without further ado, please give a warm virtual welcome to Lee. Lee, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Nick. I appreciate the spectacular introduction, and I hope this is recorded so I could play that back later to myself. So I won't go over the title again just because Nick did me the favor by highlighting it. So I'll just get into what is this talk really going to be about. So just to briefly touch on a presentation overview, what this talk is going to be, I'm going to talk about strategies to grow your LinkedIn contacts, setting up informational interviews, and how to brand yourself on LinkedIn to appeal to recruiters. What this talk is not is a tutorial on how to actually use LinkedIn specific functions, which our career development has given plenty of talks on that. And if you have those specific questions, I'd be glad to answer some of them. So first, I'm going to talk about this in sections, in these 3 sections. So the first section I'm going to go through is what are the strategies to grow your LinkedIn contacts? So the most important question is, why LinkedIn? So LinkedIn is the primary source for recruiting, even in the life science context, and building relationships within industry is going to be highly impactful when job seeking. 50% of jobs are never posted. You're never going to see them on Glassdoor or LinkedIn or whatever the case may be. You're going to need to network your way into getting your resume in front of a person that's going to be able to make decisions. And so to do that, we're first going to talk about how do you build broader connections in the industry. So this is a screenshot of my LinkedIn profile. And so I've highlighted the connections that I have here. And so it's not very important that I have 500 connections. You'll see on LinkedIn a lot of times we'll say 500 plus, and there's this perspective that you need to get as many connections as possible. That's not necessarily the case. More connections does help you because the more connections you have, the more visible you are. But it's really about the composition of those connections that's important. Who you want as connections are industry professionals, mentors, colleagues and collaborators, and who you would need less of or not as important is like your barber or your hairdresser for your professional development. That is probably not the most valuable LinkedIn connection, that's okay. You want to gear your LinkedIn connections towards these people who have the ability to help you advance professionally. So now that you've already figured out, or I've introduced the fact that you need to build appropriate contacts to further your career, the first thing that you should do is to connect with your immediate network, people that know you personally on LinkedIn. So your mentor, other grad students, maybe some faculty mentors, or colleagues, collaborators. These types of people are people you should reach out to on LinkedIn. They know you personally. They can endorse you. There shouldn't be a huge barrier for you to connect with them on LinkedIn. Anyone you've spoken to at an event or a seminar or a networking happy hour, again, there shouldn't be a huge barrier to getting these people in particular as part of your LinkedIn network. So you should automatically send these people a request, a connection request with a note, hey, it's Lee, we met, et cetera, and that's pretty straightforward. So where the value really comes from is the people outside of your immediate network, right? This is when we're talking about growth. So how are you going to connect to the people that are in the second or third line of the connection framework, right? Your mentors connection, your colleagues connection, but that's not necessarily your connection. So let's use an example profile, which you'll see a lot of these. Actually, let me put up my pointer so I can. You'll see a lot of these blue boxes just to, protect not necessarily the identity, but not to, make anybody unintentionally famous given this talk, even though there's only like 7 of us here. But let's say this person, this hypothetical person, even though this is a real LinkedIn profile, they're the senior director and head of discovery pharmacology and in vivo biology. That sounds like a, very, professional career title. This person is probably, an upper level manager or something of that sort. And so this is somebody that I would like to connect with. So what is the first thing I do? One, I look in the highlight section, which is right beneath the essential title of a person. And I ask the question, do we have mutual connections? And are we in any mutual groups, right? So this tells me, okay, I may not be connected with this person, but we have plenty of connections in common, and we're in similar professional development groups. So I kind of have an in to speak to this person, even though they don't know me personally. But let's say, for instance, you didn't have those mutual connections, or you weren't in any groups with somebody, but you still wanted to connect with them because you think it'd be advantageous for you to be part of their professional network. Just to highlight these key things that are part of a profile that you need to look at when you're trying to connect with someone. You're going to go to the More button. You're going to click that. There's going to be a Follow button. And so what the Follow essentially does is that following people allows you to connect with this person. Well, I don't want to use the word connect, but allows this person's content, their posts, their shared articles to come up on your feed, and you can still comment and provide insight on their posts without actually being in connection with them, right? So if you have nothing in common, you can follow a person, and that gives you an additional opportunity for you to be able to maybe comment on one of their articles that they're shared, or something that they wrote specifically that you may have some relevance to, and then now that's a line for you to build that type of connection. So this gets me to the importance of actually sending a connection request and how you should go about doing that. And so I'm going to talk about 2 broad strategies into connecting with someone on LinkedIn. The first thing you should do is, once you've identified that appropriate contact, is to add a note to your request. Now, I would say that I've requested plenty of people without necessarily having a note, and it has been successful, but adding a note definitely does not hurt you. But you want to keep it short and concise and get certain points across, right? And so the first way I'm going to speak about adding a note is leveraging existing mutual connections. And so I have some examples here. These are things that were actually sent to me, but they're really good examples of people leveraging mutual connections as a way to appeal towards connecting to me. So they say, first one is, hi, LeBaron, I don't believe we've met, but it looks like we have a few mutual contacts in the industry. I would be humbled to include in your network. I look forward to connecting. Fantastic. We have mutual connections. We're in similar industries. He's very pleasant. Why would I not connect with this person, right? So I accepted the connection request. Here's another example where it says, we share some connections, including X. Please accept my invitation to add to your professional network. So now we actually know someone, he mentioned someone that we both know. This lowers the barrier for me to connect with this person. These are both very good examples. But in this context still, we have something in common, right? So let's go into the context in which we have absolutely nothing in common. And that is the leveraging interest in someone's content. So here's an example that I've actually used. It says, I just wrote on this. It says, I really enjoyed your insights within the oncology investment panel. I learned a lot from the discussion and hope to learn more of the LinkedIn connection. Yes, right? So I'm interested in this person's content. I find value within that person's content, and I would like to learn more as being part of that person's professional network. This person accepted my friend request, and other comments such as this have been very successful for me in regards to building my LinkedIn network. Other examples based on these two schemes are, hello, whomever. I see we share several mutual connections. I'd like to add value to your professional network and LinkedIn experience. I tend to use this line of adding value to someone's professional network and their LinkedIn experience. I know when somebody connects with me on LinkedIn, they're going to see articles specific to my disease space, articles about things that I'm generally interested in, and as well as my insights, right? So if they find those things valuable, that's going to enhance their LinkedIn experience, and that's my value proposition to them when I request them. And I also kind of de-risk that connection by saying we have several mutual connections in place, which inherently just kind of lowers the barrier for people to connect with you. Also, I can say, I find your content on LinkedIn very insightful, and I'd like to connect and add value to your existing network. Again, here I'm saying your content, whatever you produce, whether that's posts or articles, I value it highly, and I'd like to return that favor by adding value to your network in some way, shape, or form. So let's say you are interested in speaking to somebody to learn more about a position, for example. So first, let me define what informational interviews are. Informational interviews are an opportunity to learn about a role or experience and to ultimately establish a relationship. And so let's say you're interested in the MSL role, the medical science liaison role, but you don't know anyone specifically that's done that role. So you might want to conduct an informational interview with someone that actually does that role so you can learn more about the specifics. So let's say you've already a contact with this person. You're already a connection request, you de-risk the connection request, and you want to reach out to them. Here's an example that I reached out to somebody using the interested in their content method as a way to set up my informational interview. I said, I really appreciate the content you've been putting on LinkedIn lately. It's very insightful. I'd love to ask you some questions about your role at the company you work for, and if you typically employ PhDs and MDs at your consultancy. All right, so I have a specific question. I want to learn more broadly, but I also want to know if there's specifically job opportunities for people like me. This ultimately led to an informational interview, learned a lot about this person and their company, very beneficial, broadened my knowledge about the field. Another example is somebody reached out to me via connection based on some comments we had exchanged on some of their content. And I took that opportunity to respond to them by trying to set up an interview. So I said, thank you for welcoming me to your network. Your article, 5 Things You Learned as a Healthcare Venture Fellow, really resonated with me. I'm a PhD student. I kind of explained my situation, and I'm interested in similar experiences that this person I went into, and I'd really like to essentially carve out some time to speak with them because I think their experience would be beneficial. So this also led to an informational interview. It was super informative. Again, the goals of these informational interviews are for you to learn about other people's experiences so you can take something away from them and help you progress. But there's some things you need to do before you actually get on the phone or on Zoom, in this case, conduct those informational interviews. There's 3 things you should consider. First is research. You should have a pretty good idea of the role you're asking about, and you're looking for clarity on the specifics. For example, if I was interested in becoming a life science consultant, I don't want to get in an informational interview and ask that person, hey, what is a consultant? What do they do? You know, I think that might be a waste of someone's time. What you want to do is have a pretty good idea about the roles of that person, and then use this as an opportunity to ask about specific details that you can't find online or broadly. Like, what are the hours like? What is the salary like? What types of benefits come with your job? What are the things you like most about it? What are the things that you dislike most about it? And through conducting multiple of these informational interviews on a specific career, you can get a broad picture, kind of a holistic picture of whether that career aligns with what you want to do or not professionally. So it's a good idea. Again, this isn't a how to use, LinkedIn, tutorial. You should have an idea pretty much on what things you really want to get into career-wise. And these are methods to grow your network towards investigating those specific careers and helping to gain visibility so you can end up pursuing those specific career options. The second thing you should consider before you actually get on the phone with somebody and conduct your informational interview is you should have a clearly defined set of objectives that you wish to get out of the informational interview. Meaning, I want to learn more about work-life balance in these positions. I want to learn more about salary. At the end of this conversation, I'm going to ask this person to look at my resume, or I want to know specific things about the role that weren't answered in my last informational interview, whatever the case may be. This is important to have clear objectives so that you can frame the types of questions that you want to ask to this person. That gets me to my last part, questions. You have to have a set of insightful questions prepared. You got to remember the informational interview is a two-way street. So you want to make an impression and you want to seek opportunities to be useful for this person. There's this person called Gary Vee. He's kind of like a marketing guy. He wrote this book called Jab, 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 Left Hook. And essentially the premise of that is essentially to give, be useful, provide someone with some usefulness. And if it's appropriate, you may be able to ask them for something. You can't look at LinkedIn or networking for that matter in this context of a transactional relationship, because when you're emerging from school into specific, positions, you really don't have much to give these people, right? What is this transaction? What is the payment for that person providing information and taking time out of their day? So when you get on the phone with somebody, you want to be insightful, you want to appeal to this person, you want to make that conversation enjoyable, come across as being intelligent, and also not waste their time, right? So these are all things you should think about before you get on an interview, before you conduct an informational interview with a person. So the last and maybe the most important aspect about LinkedIn, let's assume you've never done anything on LinkedIn before and you're just trying to build connections and set up informational interviews. I would say that it's possible to do that, but it might be hard. So we're going to talk about branding. And so what personal branding is, or what branding on LinkedIn is, it's the intended perception you want others to have of you, including the messaging you want to get across to other professionals and recruiters to appeal to specific roles. So I'm a scientist by trade, right? But not just any scientist, I focus on oncology. When somebody looks at my profile, I want that to be very obvious to them that I'm an oncology trained, cancer biology trained PhD candidate, right? So how do you go about branding on LinkedIn? It's about the content. Now, the content comes in many different forms that I'll get into in a few slides, but branding equals content on this LinkedIn platform. So it's important to know that content designated for other social media platforms rarely translates to useful content on LinkedIn. So what do I mean by that? Let's say, for instance, on your other social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, you have cat videos that are very popular these days for some reason. I'm kind of a dog person, but or you post pictures of food, restaurants that you've been to, or whatever you enjoy. That type of content is probably not going to translate well to LinkedIn. But if you want to provide an opinion on a new drug approval within your disease state, whatever it is that you studied during your PhD, that is pretty good content to help brand yourself as a person that has scientific expertise in that disease area. you want to gear your content around these types of items, not cat videos and food pictures. Leave that for Twitter and Instagram. And so we're talking about what types of things actually make, branding effective, and these actions are actually what is we're going to describe as brand composition. And so here you have brand, which is essentially the content, and there are the types of content that help contribute to that brand, right? And so I've broken them up into 4 main things. The things you share, which include articles, posts, relevant news, and industry-specific content. You should be following companies that you're interested in, organizations that you're interested in on LinkedIn. Every major pharmaceutical company and biotech company has a LinkedIn page. They may not be active on it. That may vary, but most of them will have them, especially startups. Whatever it is that you're interested in, try to follow those pages on LinkedIn and learn about that content, share that content. So the things that you post, so these, when you go on LinkedIn, you want to write a post or an article, this is also part of your brand. Your thoughts, opinions, creative content. I happen to like making, these kind of Instagram and LinkedIn friendly posts that kind of synthesize information. I don't expect everybody to be a graphic designer, but it's definitely helpful. It's just a different way for you to produce content that other people may find value in. Professional updates, any awards that you've won, accomplishments. These are the things that help get the branding and the messaging across that you're productive, professional, in whatever context, whatever year you're in, so that other people, including your friends, including your colleagues on LinkedIn, as well as professionals, view you in the light that you want to be viewed in. Also, what's important is the comments that you make on LinkedIn, the insights on shared articles, posts, and other types of content. So if you had made a contact, you made a connection, and they posted an article, and maybe they wrote 2 or 3 sentences about that article. If you resonate with that article, that piece of content, you may want to engage that LinkedIn user, as well as that article specifically, and comment your thoughts on it and start a discussion. LinkedIn is in, I wouldn't say the very early stages, but they're in the stage right now where content is being driven in an exceptional way. It's not very spammy. So when you comment on somebody's post or article, that person is going to be notified, and everything is based off relevance. If a lot of people start commenting on that post, it's going to appear in people's feed. People will see your content, conversations will develop, and all that helps with the messaging that you want to get across. Lastly, there's the profile. Your profile demonstrates your experiences, your skills, internships, volunteering, as well as an about section, which is used as a personal summary. Now, there's not a lot of fluidity in the profile. There's specific elements that you should fill out, which I'll get into towards the end of this talk, but this is a marketing tool. The profile is an expanded resume. It's everything that you want to say that pertains to the messaging and the brand that you want to produce, whether you're a neuroscientist that has these specific skill sets, but you also have these other soft skills or what have you. Your profile is a place for you to really highlight those experiences. So I'm going to give you some examples of some posts that were really beneficial. So a recent FDA approval for a PARP inhibitor in ovarian cancer occurred, right? It was an article. I shared the article, and then I wrote my perspective on that, highlighted some specific data that I felt was important, and also provided some insight on the outcomes of that clinical trial, as well as posed the questions. So how did this post provide value to my LinkedIn network? Well, the reality is I summarized the key points, provided my own insight, and then opened the door for further discussion amongst other users and connections within my LinkedIn. Whether I'm 100% right or not is for my LinkedIn community to decide and engage me in, but I provided them with an opportunity to engage me as a user, right? Ultimately, furthering the opportunities for me to make an impact on people. And if they really like the content, they felt good about it, then that's even more helpful because they didn't have to read the article. So I'll show you another example. I was fortunate enough to be the student moderator for an event surrounding health equity and kind of some health system reforms and things of that nature in the healthcare space with Dr. Klasko and Dr. Dana Bowen Matthew. So, and then I shared the link of the video as well as some relevant hashtags to the content. I did a little little picture editing to highlight Black History Month. And then, it's a nice photo. And then that was well liked and had some good visibility. Also, this isn't Twitter and Instagram. You're not going to get 200 likes or 1,000 likes on a post. And again, that is not even important because the traffic that you generate, the people that engage the post, it's not about the numbers. It's about the value and the quality of those generations. They go, oh, maybe this Lee knows about social determinants of health. Maybe I want to engage him and ask him his opinion on something. And that provides an opportunity for me to build a relationship with a complete stranger. And that is how opportunities are opened. So what transferable skills did I want to get across with this post? I look good in a suit. No, that's not what I wanted to talk about at all. I will say that it probably helps, but that's not what I was aiming for. What I was aiming for is that I have public speaking ability, interpersonal skills, and I may have some level of subject matter expertise based on these topics since I've had a conversation that's dynamic and insightful with these people. So aside from generating specific content on your own, you can also share other content that's on LinkedIn. So actually another graduate student in my lab who recently published her first author paper, I was fortunate enough to be second author on this fantastic paper. And so she was branding herself and putting her own accomplishments on there. Very good LinkedIn tactics, right? To broaden her reach and to brand herself as an expert in biochemistry. And so I shared that content, although a little self-serving, that I was so proud of her. And she's put an amazing year in the books, one of several publications that she's had for this year. But ultimately, I'm providing value not only to myself, but to other of my LinkedIn contacts. Another example of sharing content was this infographic that talks about how PhDs can leverage LinkedIn. Very similar to the talk I'm giving now, but in an infographic form, very detailed oriented, very great content. I did not produce it. It would be foolish of me if I didn't care about PhDs and their ability to navigate LinkedIn to not share this content. So of course I shared this content. This person is aware that I shared their content. Ultimately, all of my connections are finding this information useful, and that's what it's really about, providing value. So just checking the chat real quick. So yeah, just move it on. So next, part of the branding, right? Let's look at the profile. The profile is a story of your professional experiences. You see here, I have this is called a header. If you have specific questions about, creating content in this way to put here, I'm a scientist, so I have something that looks very sciencey. I got this from Canva, I think. There's a picture of me doing science stuff. And then there's my own little logo that I generated. Very, very me, if you know me personally. So this is to get across that I can produce content and that I'm a scientist first, even though a lot of my career options, as you can see here, the things that I'm interested in have nothing to do with specific scientific roles of doing science. I want to let people know I'm a scientist, I think like a scientist, but I'm also interested in these other support systems and the other roles that are based around science, but not actually doing physical science. So this is my about section. People will tell you different things about the about section. I think this is an opportunity for you to be very expansive. You want to tell a story here, but just in case people have short attention spans that don't feel like reading your entire autobiography, I like to summarize the main point in the about section. If they only read the first paragraph, they're going to get across what I want them to get across, and everything else is just in support of that. So my first paragraph says, I'm a sociable oncology PhD candidate with expertise in solid tumor biology, de-risking preclinical drug development projects, blah, 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 blah. Everything that I really want to get across is in this paragraph. It kind of summarizes my entire professional experience up until this point. That's what you want to use the about section for. More importantly, the things that are in this about section contribute to how you rank with recruiters, because everything is about keywords, because at the end of the day, LinkedIn is a digital platform. Recruiters come on your page based on the way keywords are ranked within their search systems. So another element of the LinkedIn profile is your experience. Now, obviously, everyone, if you have a LinkedIn profile, you probably put your most recent experience, but you may not put every experience on there, and you're not expansive about those experiences. So I'm going to say there's 4 things you really want to get across by putting information into this experience section. Keywords that match for recruiters. Again, you should have a pretty good idea about what positions you'd like to hold in industry. And so how do you know what keywords will match for recruiters? You need to look at job postings, see the type of language. You can't make a specific LinkedIn profile for individual job postings, but if you look at enough job postings for a specific position, you know, scientist 1 or MSL or life science consultant, you'll start to see commonalities within those job postings. And so you want to see how your skills and experiences play to those commonalities, frequent words that are being used. Can you then incorporate those words into your experiences? Also, you want to establish that there's a depth and breadth of experiences within your LinkedIn profile, right? This is where the depth comes from, specific details, but also you want to say, I have different types of experiences aside from just being a scientist. I'm a PhD candidate first, and then I've had these, and first and most importantly, and then I've had all of these other experiences that developed my soft skills and leadership. LinkedIn also has this really cool function for you to put specific pieces of content that are non-LinkedIn related, whether they be links or actually PDFs or images or projects that you've produced. You can link additional content that supports your experiences. That's very important. Also, this section is to emphasize transferable skills. A lot of people that are interested in, a lot of students rather like myself that are interested in industry, we know we're going to be put in positions where our specific disease or research experiences may not be as relevant, but it's our ability to think critically, to synthesize large amounts of information, to think about, you know, looking at complex problems and breaking them into smaller parts, being able to speak about those things, communicate them in an effective way. You want to get these transferable skills across, and you want to make sure that you write about your experiences in that way. Okay, so now you're branding yourself effectively, you've got a good LinkedIn profile, got a good amount of connections. Now you want to reach out to recruiters. So if all of these things are been done, have you been doing them well, some recruiters should be, you know, piling up in your inbox. As you get closer, you've told the LinkedIn software, hey, I'm looking for a job, this time frame, whatever the case may be. Some recruiters will send you emails rather, pertaining to specific jobs. That's one way to kind of let recruiters come to you. But how can you appeal to recruiters? How can you go out and be proactive about engaging recruiters? So I broke that down into 4 steps. And the first step is to actually connect with recruiters. Recruiters will have different titles, but they're pretty easy to find because they're posting jobs on LinkedIn. And if you have enough context, you'll just start seeing recruiters post and things of that sort. You should reach out to those people. And when I say reach out, you should engage them by commenting on those posts, offering to share that content, just outright sharing that content, as well as connecting with recruiters that operate within your specific space of interest. You know, there are biotech and life science recruiters. There's medical affairs recruiters. There's medical communications recruiters. You should be connecting with these people using the same methods that I spoke of before. A lot of recruiters will also post their own type content, not just specifically jobs that they're hiring for. You want to engage that content and build a rapport with these people. So those are the first 2 steps. Connect with the recruiters, engage your recruiters. Again, keywords, keywords, keywords. Make sure that you're using the right types of keywords in your profiles. In your skills section, you're allowed to pick up to 50 skills. After you've combed through a bunch of job postings, you should start ranking those skills and putting the skills that are most relevant. On specific job posts, they will tell you how well you match the position if you have LinkedIn Premium. I don't think LinkedIn Premium is necessary unless you're actively looking for a job, right? So if you're getting closer to finishing and graduating, there's a lot of benefits associated with LinkedIn Premium. You go look for a job, they'll say you have 4 of 10 skills here. You're in the top 50%. You're in the top 10%, 5%, whatever the case may be. LinkedIn Premium will give you those resources, but it costs money. So if you don't want to spend it in your LinkedIn trajectory and, you know, building your LinkedIn profile, it's not very important in the beginning. Also, you want your resume to be built in the same light. Some people, you'll get mixed opinions on this. Some people will say that they like to put their resume online. I will say in my experience, if you're interested in 2 or 3 positions, let's say MSL, a consultant, or a medical writer, it's unlikely that you're going to be able to use the same resume for all of those different positions. Yes, they all take scientific expertise. They all take good communication skills, leadership, but different themes are emphasized in those roles. And you really want to build your resume specific for those roles, right? You really want to be heavy on leadership for consulting. You want to be heavy on communication skills for MSL. You want to be heavy on your writing ability for medical writing and medical communications, for example, right? So your resume can be flexible. That's why I don't think posting one resume in particular on your LinkedIn is particularly helpful. And if a recruiter reaches out to you, they're not going to pull it off your page. They're just going to ask you for it. The last part is to actually message recruiters when you're ready to be interviewed. I think this is a very specific point that I want to make here. You can message recruiters and ask about a role. But I will say, though, some recruiters are very friendly, and just like people are very friendly. But if you engage them early and it's not a great impression, the recruiter is not there to educate you about the role. The recruiter is there to find the best applicant for that role. That's how they make money. That's their job. That's their primary focus. So when you want to reach out to a recruiter specifically about a job, you want to be ready to give a good performance and be ready to be interviewed by that recruiter. You want to make a good impression on that recruiter, right, when you're reaching out about specific roles. Or I would just keep the conversation light and not necessarily send them an email or try to set up an informational interview with a recruiter unless you're ready to actually transition out into this position. So here's some examples of me talking to recruiters. The first example is, this is a recruiter that I've known for a while on LinkedIn. I share his content. He sends jobs my way, jobs that I'm not even interested in. I post them because I know other scientists will have, other PhD candidates will have different interests than mine. So I told him I'm expected to graduate October 2020. A resume is attached. I thought it'd be useful for you to have it on hand. Let me know if there are any ways I can help you with your recruiting efforts on LinkedIn or otherwise, right? And so this last part is, here's my resume. I think you should have it because I want you to keep options in mind for me. But more importantly, let me know if I can help you with things that have nothing to do with me, right? And so there's the value proposition. I think if you want people to do things for you, you have to provide value, whether that's content or actions or otherwise. Another example is a recruiter sent me a request. And so, of course, I answered back and said, thank you for the connection. Let me know if I could be helpful in any way with your recruiting efforts for science positions for recent PhDs, MDs, or PharmDs. Because of my role within Jefferson and LinkedIn, I'm constantly sending jobs and pieces of content to Grace, who runs the BizBio newsletter, who does a fantastic job. If you're not signed up for the newsletter, you're missing out. Please sign up for the newsletter. It's great. So these are just examples of the types of discourse you can have with recruiters. But I would say you want to build that relationship with your recruiter via posts, comments, shares before you reach out to them in a message. So to wrap things up, to put the pieces together for hacking your LinkedIn, I brought them into 4 really big themes. And so the first one is to create and share engaging content. Be active on LinkedIn, right? The second thing is to connect with appropriate professionals to expand your LinkedIn network. If you want to be a scientist for GSK, I'm not saying don't connect with the Comcast guy. I'm just saying he or she may not be very impactful on your job search. So identify appropriate professional contacts to reach out to and to build a relationship with, because everybody has, different things to do with their time. And so you want to be strategic in this approach. Thirdly, you want to build relationships by conducting informational interviews, joining LinkedIn groups, and commenting on posts. This is the trifecta here. You want to conduct informational interviews, learn as much as possible about the role, use that information that you've learned to really make a good impression on a person you're doing the informational interviews with, as well as ask specific details, specific questions about things that are really hard to find. And just articles. People aren't exactly 100% transparent about their roles. So this is a good time to speak to a person on a personal level and then ask them specific things about that role. LinkedIn groups is a great source for you to see information, connect with people. I would recommend joining LinkedIn groups. You can't just join them. Again, you have to be active within them. And of course, commenting on posts. And the last part is engaging recruiters, share their content, and reach out to them when you're interview ready. So as I mentioned before, the importance of these things, the importance specifically engaging recruiters, sharing their content, providing value for recruiters, and then reaching out to them when you're ready to be interviewed, right? Because you don't want to risk making a bad impression. So make sure that these relationships that you have, you're always trying to make the best impression possible. And that's hacking LinkedIn. So now I'll take whatever questions that are available. So thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Lee. That was an awesome presentation. If anyone has questions, please feel free to write them in the chat, and Lee will try to answer them.
So let me see. Let me stop my share. Pull up the chats here. Okay. Newsletter sign up. I see somebody's in there. So if you have more questions, I don't think anyone posted any questions.
Rishi had a question, but I think he answered it himself.
Oh, say where can you go list the open to job opportunities section? Okay, sees it. Yeah. Yeah. Specific LinkedIn, questions about kind of how to operate the platform. Reach out to me via email. I'd be happy to, get on my LinkedIn, walk you through those types of things. LinkedIn is really intuitive, but of course, when you're using something for the first time, it can be really difficult.
Yeah. I have a question. After you do an like an informational interview, like how often do you keep up with that contact? Do you usually just do it one time, or?
Right. So it kind of depends on where you are in regards to that informational interview, right? So let's say 2 years ago, I conducted informational interviews about consultancy roles. I didn't know a lot. I was reading a lot, but I wanted to know more about it. So I looked at other PhD students who were later in their year that were closer to exiting into consulting positions. I still talk to those people today. I would say you should be active with them, because if they're posting content, you can interact with them via their shares or like their content or comment. So it's not like you're completely a ghost after that interview. But if you want to reach out to them specifically about, catching up or something like that, I would probably do that within a few months with people that you've had informational interviews with.
Okay. Yeah.
I see there are some questions actually. Oh, it says, do I think it's better to be brief in our LinkedIn profile or provide as much detail as possible? Or how do you find a balance? So I think I can only speak from my personal experience. I'm pretty expansive in my LinkedIn profile. As a PhD student, a lot of the times I see industry really requires you to have some level of industry experience, consulting experience. So how do you kind of get that across? So I need all of the real estate that I can use to convince, the algorithm of a recruiter or somebody in a position of power that I really have what it takes to be considered for that job. And then if I can get through that first barrier, hey, maybe I should speak to this person, then I can have a conversation with them. And then that's really where I want to get. So I would say be as expansive as possible, but you have to write geared towards specific professions. How would I go about requesting connection?
I think Sammy has a question first. I may have forgotten the exact definition of what they are called, but what are your thoughts on LinkedIn quizzes or the mentorship groups that they have? Worth it? Waste of time?
So I can't speak to the LinkedIn quizzes are really generalized. Speaking to this life science professionals, master's students, PhD students, they're really based around like soft skills or like some statistical skills, some really popular softwares that are used in industry. If you have those skills, you can look through the list. There's a limited list. And if you have any experience in those things, you want to take the test, it definitely can't hurt you. So I would say if you have the skill, if you fail it, it doesn't go on your LinkedIn profile like you attempted it. So it only shows up if you actually pass the test. As far as the mentors are concerned from LinkedIn, I've never used that function. I've been pretty diligent in trying to find industry mentors just through connecting with people on LinkedIn. I would say mentors in general are very important, whether they're through the LinkedIn service or otherwise. You should try to do whatever possible to have industry mentors, people that are in these positions that can provide, actionable oversight for your, decision making.
Okay, thank you. The next question is from Christine Fisher. What is the etiquette for following up with people on LinkedIn? I sent an invite and a note to someone, but never heard back. Is there a reasonable way to follow up?
So sure. I like to keep my initial messages very short. If I don't hear anything from a person in about 2 weeks, I'll probably try to buzz them again with another short message citing the first one. Hey, I sent you a LinkedIn message before. I really want to touch base with you because of XYZ. At that point, if you don't get a response, that person may not be active on LinkedIn as much as we think, or that person just really isn't interested in speaking with you. At that point, you should probably just move on if you're following up with people, once or twice and they're not responsive. The good thing about LinkedIn is that there's millions of users on the platform, and somebody will talk to you about professional development. People are really nice. If anybody reaches out to me asks about consulting or anything like that, I'm more than happy to speak to them. So, and people in the industry are genuinely really excited to help people.
Great. The next question is from Rishi. How would you go about requesting a connection to introduce you to someone who works at their company you're interested in working for? I always find it awkward and have a hard time finding the right words.
Okay, so that sounds like you're kind of one person removed from the person you want to talk to. Am I interpreting that right?
I don't think so.
I don't think that would be my initial request. I would build a relationship with that person, be friendly with that person, provide value to that person, and then ask them, hey, based on my career goals, I think it'd be really useful for me to speak to this person. Are you close with them? Could you possibly introduce us? In my experience, people who I've connected with who haven't been able to help me specifically, just go ahead and connect you with the person that aligns with your goals, mostly if they can't help. That's been my experience on like several occasions where I reached out to a person or had a conversation or built a relationship with a person. They're like, you should really talk to my friend Janet, who's like the president of this company. So I think you should just go about focusing on providing value to everyone that you encounter. And when you think it's appropriate, just go ahead and ask them, I think this person would be really helpful in my professional development.
These are really great questions. The next one I relate to a lot. It's from Sunny. For sharing content, what if you have just recently started using LinkedIn and you have content you would like to share from your past? Example, past events that you played a significant role that happened less than a year ago. Is it too late to share those, or is there a good way to share after the effect?
Yeah, no, not at all. I think it's all about how you frame that content. Like if it's something you did that you're very proud of, you can just state that within your post. This accomplishment or this item, whatever it is, really taught me these things, and that seems to be really relevant today, so I'm sharing this content. You don't have to explain why you're sharing it, but you don't need to provide a reason why you're sharing old content. You just need to provide why that experience, aside from just it being a personal accomplishment, would be helpful for other people to know about. And so if you focus on that, I think there's no time limit on, you could post your high school graduation if you want. It's like, I remember this day, it was so impactful, and that resonates in this like time of like coronavirus and stress. I just like look back on this day. So I mean, you could frame any piece of content to be positive and to be beneficial for others.
Yeah. Okay. The next question is from Richard Barrett. What is the best relationship you've developed that started purely through LinkedIn?
Wow. So I've gotten like several job opportunities just purely through LinkedIn. I would say the most I reached out to one woman who I was interested in learning about, medical communications, medical writing. But I'm the consultant guy. You guys know me for that. I was really interested in that as well. And so she introduced me to a friend of hers that was a consultant. He kind of became my mentor. And then he put me in contact with a person that started a company, a consultancy firm, and it was like 3 people removed. I met this person. I was willing to offer me a job, right? So, but that took like months. And so in these months in which I'm like fostering these relationships, now these 2 people who helped me get into this situation, now I'm just like really good friends with them. Instead of it being like a mentor-student relationship, now we're like talking casually on LinkedIn. How your kids doing? How's your wife? Husband? Do these types of things. How's your son? So I think I have quite a few relationships like that, but they all started with just me kind of just being outspoken on LinkedIn and trying to provide value to someone else.
Great. Sounds like a really good relationship. Are there any other questions in the chat? Did I miss any?
Somebody sent me a private message. Let me
Okay.
just so pretty much I'm gonna summarize the question, which is essentially saying, do I think it's good to connect with recruiters even if there's not a job that's posted? I would say yes, because you know, Nick's a structural biochemist. I don't know anything about structural biochemistry. So if somebody asks me about it, I would refer them to Nick, right? And so recruiters are kind of operating in the same way. You want to build a relationship with somebody that has that role, but they're going to hear about jobs that they may not be specifically responsible for. But because you're in their mind as a good person, as somebody that's knowledgeable, when those things align, that relationship that you have with that person and a job opportunity, that person can make that connection for you. And then they can refer you to the recruiter or whomever. So I think it's good to connect with people within the space that you're interested in, regardless of their position. You never know the timeline in which these things are going to actually come true.
Yeah. Please refer me as the structural biologist to everyone.
Right.
Any other questions? I can't see your private messages if you got them, but I don't see any in our group chat here.
Yeah, let me see if I got any more privates. I'm just gonna scroll up real quick. Nope, I think that's everything in regards to private questions.
Okay, so again, I want to express my gratitude to Lee for his wonderful and insightful presentation, and also a huge thank you to all of our viewers. Don't forget to connect with us further by the newsletter, email, or LinkedIn, and I hope you and your loved ones remain happy and healthy. Thank you for attending, and I guess I'll end the meeting. Anything else you want to add, Lee?
No, I just want to say thank you for everyone that signed on and for the questions. It was a really good opportunity for me to speak and kind of do the Zoom presentation. If you're not friends with me on LinkedIn, send me a request with a note. I'm a good person to practice on. Act like you've never heard of me before. Just reach out to me. I'm going to accept you, so don't worry about getting rejected. And then it's a good way for us to just start a conversation and build a relationship.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much again. All right, take care, everyone.
Thanks.
All right.